The next day, after taking a good nap, he notices he is being watched by a pig, who is a shameless one, saying "Good morning, brother," and reveals that she had been watching him while he slept because he looked very defenseless. And yes, this is the same goblin who liked to eat zombies since, after all the battles and experiences they gained, they managed to evolve. This is how we see the case of Hopk, who was healing the wounded at the base because he was once just a hobgoblin and now is a semi-holy lord who also learned a very curious ability called Shell Field, a veil of light that only his species can use. Even our protagonist acknowledges that it is very resistant since it took him 20 punches to destroy it completely. Meanwhile, the comic zombies emphasize that Hopi has the perfect balance between cute and cool, while in our protagonist's gross mind, he thought she has the perfect balance between dirty and clumsy. As she did not stop eating the zombie shadows, she evolved into a ghoul, which would basically now be a necrophage demon, which was the most expected. Noticing the crazy girl watching the three of them, he wonders what dirty things that girl might be thinking. And since she is his little sister, he prefers not to think about it and goes elsewhere. Suddenly, he encounters HME, who has eyes on her back since she evolved into a Dotomy, a species that masters witchcraft and has abilities like remote vision and introscope, allowing her to gather information even better than ROG Grow. Similarly, 7 other hobgoblins that served evolved into ogres because, despite their companions' deaths, those who survived used that sadness to propel themselves forward. They also brought in 6 new kobolds since they had only 1 kobold left, who evolved and now is a kobold Bushi, appearing more like an old mobster in disguise. It is revealed that he was given an authentic name, a kick case Nazi, quite a Japanese name, while the old hipster reveals that the authentic name is only given to those who surpass a certain level. If other beings discover this name, it would become impossible to avoid their curses. Revealing your true name would basically be suicide for you. Thus, Papio Grow wonders who grants that name, and the warrior kobold explains it is a ritual to pledge eternal loyalty to their lord. So, our protagonist decided to call him a kick kin and then started thinking about what to do with the prisoners, whom he practically set free but gave them the option to stay in the village if they had nowhere else to go, essentially as a trial period to see if they are useful. However, the 3 strongest prisoners were complaining as they did not want to remain apprentices, much less be ranked below goblins, although our dear Grow knows these 3 are of a species more powerful than goblins. The fact is that they are new, and he cannot trust them yet. Unlike the goblins he has already trained with for a long time, the red-haired horned one, seeing their complaints ignored, proposes they be allowed to fight their leader, and if they win, they would lead the mercenaries. So, as they mocked our protagonist for being just an ogre, which obviously infuriated Dumais so much that she wanted to hit them right then and there, our protagonist calmed her down, since he had trusted the others. He asked them to attack him 2 at a time to demonstrate why he is the leader of the village. The arrogant redhead mentioned that he would regret facing both a flame lord and a wind lord at the same time for the battle. These 2 were even using enhanced orbs, which caught the attention of the crazy old man, who mentioned that they should pay attention because they could also use them. Equipping an orb greatly boosts an individual's combat capability, and apparently, according to what he heard, it also self-repairs. Taking advantage of the 2 attacking him together, our protagonist decided to crush their attack and their pride without hesitation, just as they were about to clash with him. Our own Grow knocked them down with a single punch, sending them flying into a tree and knocking them out immediately, just like the next 3 horned ones. However, one took advantage of our protagonist's distraction and knocked him against a rock. Nevertheless, before the guy could celebrate, our protagonist managed to hit him in the ribs, breaking them on impact and knocking him out as well, even though the blow he received was a surprise. He actually expected it and let himself be hit to see how strong that guy was, so only a semi-vampire was left, who was flirting with Damie. Our jealous Grow was not going to allow that, so he delivered 100 consecutive blows per second, not even letting him rest when he fainted. Yes, our protagonist was very jealous and would have killed the guy if Damie hadn't stopped him. Since he was so badly injured, she gave him some of her blood to heal faster. Meanwhile, Those in the trial period encountered other species that seemed stronger. Unlike the previous braggarts, they were very grateful because our protagonist saved them from slavery. Looking him in the eyes, they said they would never consider attacking their lord since he even healed their wounds. Our protagonist was impressed by their understanding and kindness, so he gave them much more favorable treatment. However, the semi-vampire who had fallen for our protagonist due to his blood interrupted them, since our protagonist obviously didn't like men. The guy received a severe beating because he already had enough with the dirty imagination of Golfu, referring to the shameless girl. After taking inventory, he registered 50 individuals who stayed for the trial period and left them training with Orochi. As for the blacksmith, he brought in 3 dwarves to help her, who told her she had a lot to learn without even greeting her. Yes, little braggarts. So she immediately complained to our protagonist because she didn't like those dwarves at all. However, Poppy Bro explained that dwarves are the best blacksmiths in the world and that he wants them to make mithril products, so he asked her to be friendlier with them. After that, she decided to experiment by combining the abilities she learned yesterday, such as orb release, managing to create armor for her foot. Then she created a monster using chaotic exanimate, which I also don't know what it is, but it resulted in a monster called Legion that went out of control, so our protagonist killed it. Finally, he designed a combined ability using weakened sunlight and weakened light damage, which didn't work well on his body. By nightfall, he was more mentally exhausted than physically, so he wasn't going to perform as usual at night, leaving all the girls wanting more. On day 85, he focused on improving the base, mainly to finish the hot springs, as their primary goal was to have a business for the elves, starting by inviting their chief. After hard work, he went to rest. The next day, he began testing his new combined abilities with the members in the trial period. Our protagonist was so harsh that he nearly killed some of them. On day 87, the dwarves gifted him a huge hammer, as it is their custom to give such a gift as a token of gratitude or friendship. After thanking them, he went to the forest alone. Unlike when he was just a small goblin, now other living beings flee if he doesn't conceal his presence. In the forest, he encountered a Dade, who was eager to see him. However, Gro didn't have time for that and wanted her to tell him what he had requested. Naturally, Adade refused and insisted on having some intimate time with him first before finally giving him what he asked for. When he returned, he had many kiss marks, and both Tammy and the redhead scolded him for it. The next day, he switched to farmer mode as Adade handed him fruit and vegetable seeds created through magic. These seeds grew faster, were tastier, and more nutritious than natural ones, while he and the others would help for now. Eventually, only those specializing in agriculture would handle it. As Gro wasn't an expert, the redhead taught him, feeling very happy to be useful to the village patriarch. Although the work was hard, Gro felt quite good after a day of healthy labor. The next day, some of those in the trial period decided to leave, and some prisoners returned to the city, enchanted by Damie's eyes to act as spies and gather information about the kingdom and the human empire. Gro didn't trust anything blindly and preferred to be prepared. That same day, they were invited by the elf to a banquet at Rut, where there was an orchestra and his daughter dancing. While watching her dance, the old elf revealed that his brother had broken the code and gone to deal with the outside world. If he ever returns, all they can do is wait and defend the village, which they did with Gro's help. They toasted, and the souls of the dead elves ascended to heaven. On day 90, upon returning to the base, her TR informed him that there weren't many spirit stones left, so the one they had was the last one he could consume. Gro thanked Lidana and Belvet for everything, then later combined the bones of black skeletons and protected them from sunlight corruption with his clones, creating a skeletal centipede. Although the humans found it disgusting, Gro explained that it wasn't a familiar, but rather a particular vehicle to take them to the human city. He promised to return them to their city, where they could decide whether to stay or return with him. The next day, they finally finished the hot springs, and Gro earned the title of engineer after completing the project. Everyone who wanted to return home left. During training, the redhead was a bit hesitant and asked her fellow redhead if she really had to return to the human city. Understanding her feelings, he reassured her that unless the chief or Gro wanted to get rid of her, she didn't have to leave. They continued training, and the next day, the humans gathered what they could sell in the city. Being careful not to take too much advantage of the free resources, Gro realized that he had met women who not only brought knowledge he didn't have but were also kind to nature. On day 93, he decided to throw a welcome party for the newcomers, inviting even the troublesome drunks. One sober person reminded him that the kingdom and the empire hated demi-humans, suggesting they might not enter without a lord leading the group. With this information, Gro divided them into 4 groups and set clear rules: gather information from the outside, try to solve problems on their own, everyone in the group must level up, and, most importantly, don't die. They formed 5 groups in total. On the day of departure, everyone looked emotional, especially Galfu, who reassured her friend that she would protect Tea's purity and the village. Her jealous friend told her not to get ahead, and Saiji didn't understand what was happening. Each group left separately, and before departing, Gro looked at his home, the place where he had appeared. While living there, he lost some things but gained many more, including encounters with powerful beings. He knew there were still many powerful creatures to devour in this world. Riding his skeletal centipede, he headed toward the human city of Triant, where the humans were traveling before they met him.